as she snuggles down with a stranger in some back of the barroom bed. It's much too dark to see the stranger, so she thinks of shoes instead. Old man Horace Jenkins.
David Ackles was an American singer, songwriter, pianist, and child actor. As a child, he acted in several films in the 40s. A bit later on, when he was a grown-up, he got work as a staff writer for Elektra Records, but the songs didn't suit anyone, and his boss suggested that he record them himself, so he did. Over a period of time, he released 4 albums between 1968 and 1973. Then his singing career seemed to fade, and he went back to writing for others as a staff writer, but still his songs had no takers. At one point, he had a bad car accident, which made piano playing hard. He taught musical theatre at university and wrote some musical theatre himself and directed some productions. He died in 1999. He was not very successful commercially, and in fact was better known in the UK than in the US. He has been highly regarded by other songwriters, especially Elvis Costello and Elton John. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was David Ackles' 3rd album, and it's my first encounter with him. I've not heard of him before. I had no idea what this music was going to be like when I first started listening on my first listen. I have no clue, and this is what it is. So let's try and do some description. Actually, first I'll say that it was produced by Bernie Taupin of Elton John's songwriting fame. So Bernie Taupin was famously Elton John's songwriting partner. So I would describe this as being singer-songwriter, but definitely with a kind of baroque pop feel to it, by which I mean it's got big, kind of almost orchestral backing at times, even though sometimes it has bands, sometimes it is just kind of orchestral instruments. A bit like, I don't know, there's kind of into the 60s or the 50s and 60s, the crooners, but also, so people like Frank Sinatra, but he was kind of more jazz than this. People like Andy Williams, etc. So there's definitely, classical instruments and a band here. There's often brass, and there is a piano focus because he is a pianist. Musically, it's quite unusual at times. So sometimes it feels like it's kind of pop rock-ish, but more often it's got a more classical feel, or at least more kind of comic opera feel. Like, I want to mention Kurt Weill here. When I say comic opera, I don't mean Gibbon Sullivan style stuff, more of the kind of cabaret stuff from Germany. And in some ways, it's kind of, I mentioned Frank Sinatra already. Imagine what you would get if you took a straight line between Frank Sinatra and Leonard Cohen. I know, 2 strange things, and mix those 2 together, or took a line and took a midpoint. Is kind of some way kind of musically croony like Frank Sinatra, but the darkness and dark stories like Leonard Cohen. In fact, there is one person that is very obvious to compare him to, which is Scott Walker in his first 4 albums-ish, certainly his 70s albums. There's other people that could be compared to. Jacques Brel, who's a French guy. It's quite musical theatre in its delivery. You can kind of, you could see how these songs might musically work inside a musical. They don't all necessarily thematically work as if they did. Excuse me. And it's definitely story songs. So he's painting pictures and he's telling the stories of people here. Mostly this is of dark and kind of slightly grotesque at times, or sad characters, and the darker side of life. There are a couple, at least, that are more personal, like particularly when I pull out a family band. And there's a strong vein of Christian faith, actually, through the personal stuff. Now, apparently this is genuine. It could have been taken to be satirical because of the nature of the rest of his music, but apparently it's not meant to be. So what do I think? Well, the songwriting's really strong. It has a really strong identity to it. It kind of works as an album. It's in some ways it's not my kind of music, although it is interesting at times. It's a bit too kind of musical theatre baroque pop for me, but that just means it's not my favourite kind of music. Um, it doesn't work well as background music. It really demands the attention when it's on. Is far too interesting, and that's the word that I really want to use. Is it's interesting. So I did actually quite enjoy it, despite the kind of it not being so much the musically my kind of thing. Lyrically, I definitely enjoyed it, and there's some good and interesting stuff in here. So, if you like the darker side of singer-songwriters, I'm going to reference here Nick Drake, obviously Scott Walker, Leonard Cohen, anything like that. Then, and you don't know this, I would suggest you check it out because I think you might like this. I quite liked it, and that's what I think of this album. So, as always, at this point, I'd like to invite you to tell me what you think of this album. So please do that. I'd love to know what you think. Please let me know by. I'm always kind of pointing to the comments box down here. See if we're nothing you can get to. There we go. And that's it from me for now.
She hears the beckoning call of night. Neon fingers touching her with light. And she runs to join the movers on the midnight carousel, calling faster to a barker she knows all too